eye pokes, fish hooks, stomping on an opponent's face, and knocking out referees are just a few examples of dirty MMA tactics that certain athletes have employed as a means to express their frustration or idiotism. Let's recall some of the dirtiest moves in MMA history that shocked viewers in disbelief. And if you guys enjoy this video, please subscribe and be the force behind our push to 10,000 subscribers. Let's do this. Gerard Gordo permanently damaging Yuki Nikais' eyes. Many remember Gerard Gordo for his notable appearance as the finalist against Royce Gracie at UFC 1, which earned him a positive reputation. However, for some, his legacy was tarnished in April 1995 during his last professional MMA fight against Yuki Nikais in Vale-Tudo, Japan. Nikais' game plan was apparent, taking the fight to the ground and submitting Gordo, which led to a grappling contest where Gordo found himself on the defensive. According to Gordo's perspective, shared in a 2014 interview with SureDog.com, he believed the bout should have been stopped as Nikais wasn't actively fighting. Feeling frustrated, Gordo resorted to a regrettable move. He used his thumb to target Nikais' eye, causing permanent blindness. Despite this, Nikais managed to get Gordo to the canvas with a heel hook, making him tap out. Nikais continued in the tournament, defeating Craig Pittman before losing to Rickson Gracie in the finals. What adds to the controversy is Gordo's lack of remorse for his actions. In the 2014 interview, he admitted warning the referee to stop the fight or he would put out Nikais' eye, a threat he carried out. This lack of regret remains a stain on Gordo's record, and he doesn't look bothered by it at all. Gilbert Ivel lays a beating on a ref. Although Gilbert Ivel calmed down as his career progressed, even during a challenging 0-3 period in the UFC in his earlier years, he earned a reputation for being the dirtiest fighter of his generation. Ivel had 3 disqualifications on his pro record, each for different reasons: biting, eye gouging, and in a particularly shocking incident, knocking out a referee. It's the last one that really stands out. Regardless of a referee's performance or a fighter's frustration, decking a referee is never justified. There's no reasonable expectation for an official to be ready for such a thing, yet that's exactly what Ivel did in 2004 at Fight Festival 12. The referee had intervened multiple times, which left Ivel increasingly frustrated. Suddenly, he landed a left-hand punch that sent the referee to the mat. Adding insult to injury, Ivel kicked the man while he was down. It was a terrible and embarrassing moment. Ivel's reputation was rightfully earned through such incidents, and he should consider himself fortunate that major promotions and regulated areas didn't ban him for his history of questionable behavior. Fishing in the Octagon. Ryan Caraway wasn't always the most beloved figure in the sport, and on June 7, 2014, he fully embraced playing the role of the heel. Caraway was matched against one of the rising stars, Eric Perez, who was set to open the main card, a clear sign that the UFC was giving him a chance to shine. However, instead of showcasing skills, Caraway used the opportunity to highlight how cheating sometimes seems to go unpunished. Even in the early days of the sport, when there were no rules, one of the unspoken rules was to avoid fish-hooking your opponent, which is sticking your fingers in their mouth and hooking their cheek. In the first round of their fight, Caraway chose to break this rule. With Perez in a tough spot, trying to break Caraway's hold, Caraway fish-hooked him to maintain control. What made it worse was that Caraway didn't immediately let go, keeping the foul in play as they grappled. The referee should probably see an eye doctor. Despite the foul, Perez managed to survive the round, but Caraway ultimately won the fight in the second. It's hard to say if anything would have changed without the foul. Caraway, however, managed to break one of the oldest rules without facing any consequences. Rusmar Palhares' whole career. While no one has ever faced a life-threatening situation from a toe hold or being knocked out by an ankle lock, every sports fan knows the devastating impact a knee injury can have and how it lingers. These techniques are so intimidating that in many gyms, fighters shy away from drilling them, fearing ligament tears or tendon pops. Rusmar Palhares, a submission specialist focusing on knee bars and heel hooks, would have been a formidable opponent on his own, but add to that a tendency to keep twisting even when an opponent taps and a referee intervenes, and you've got one of the dirtiest fighters in history. Palhares has too many instances of his post-tap limb twisting to count. UFC fans got a taste in 2010 when he was suspended for 90 days for cranking Tomas Derwal's leg. 3 years later, he was cut from the UFC for the same offense against Mike Pierce. His stint at World Series of Fighting ended similarly when he refused to release a hold against Jake Shields, accompanied by a bit of eye gouging. Over time, stories and videos emerged of Palhares repeating this behavior in regional-level MMA, BJJ competitions, and even with unsuspecting training partners in the gym. Palhares, unfortunately, hasn't made the best decisions. In 2015, he was suspended by the Nevada Athletic Commission for 2 years, a hearing where even his surprise expert witness condemned him. While he found work on the European circuit, he faced challenges and made questionable complaints about illegal strikes after losing his first fight. These days, he's competing in Russia's Fight Night's global promotion, still managing to stir up controversy despite being overseas. Michael Kyle's intention to kill the opponent. So there's this guy, Michael Kyle, not exactly a household name in the MMA world, but he's got a rep as a bit of a rough player. Dude from the American Kickboxing Academy, strong as heck, but sometimes his temper gets the best of him. You know how it is, moments you just can't shake off. In an event at WEC 20, back on May 5th, 2006, Kyle was up against Brian Olsen. They're scrapping, trying to get back on their feet, and bam! Kyle throws a kick right to Olsen's head. Now, if that was it, maybe Kyle could have just said he got caught up in the heat of the moment. Happens to the best, right? But no, it didn't stop there. Olsen hits the mat, and Kyle just keeps going, like he's out to seriously hurt the guy. Ref tries to step in and pull Kyle off, but he's relentless. Pretty disturbing. Luckily, the ref finally steps in and separates Kyle from Olsen's unconscious body. This wasn't Kyle's first or last time on the shady side of MMA, but this one's a standout, a really sickening example. Josh Koscheck's dirty methods to victory. Josh Koscheck is definitely the Anderson Silva of fighting dirty in the MMA world. Unlike your average mixed martial artist with just one good tool, Koscheck seamlessly blended deliberate cheating into his overall game, making him a standout in the art of playing rough. Sure, you might remember his antics like the phantom illegal knee in the Paul Daly fight, or his shenanigans on The Ultimate Fighter, but what really set him apart was his extraordinary eye poke. This wasn't your typical dirty trick thrown out occasionally. Koscheck made it an art. He had different setups for his eye pokes. Sometimes he'd paw with his left hand, flaring his fingers when the opponent stepped forward. Other times, he'd stand with his hand open, inviting opponents to walk eyeball first into his fingernails. And well, in his fight with Anthony Rumble Johnson, he straight up intentionally poked the guy in the eye. What made Koscheck really stand out was how he used his eye pokes in combinations. His open left hand often set up a big right, and if the ref didn't step in quick enough, he'd unleash a flurry as his blinded opponent covered up and turned away. With MMA's usually cautious officials, there was little risk of Koscheck losing points. Love it or hate it, you've got to admit it was both technically and tactically brilliant. Gary Goodridge's unconventional groin attack. Let's go back to the 1997 showdown between Gary Goodridge and Pedro Otavio, a journey to a simpler era, back in his UFC days. In a throwback to 90s actions, Pedro gained the top position on Goodridge. As expected, Gary defended himself, but an unforeseen twist occurred when, in the struggle, Goodridge's foot found itself lodged in Otavio's trunks. His foot ended up inside the man's trunks, where certain private belongings were residing, and to everyone's surprise, Goodridge didn't rush to free himself. He left it there. Now brace yourself for the weirdness. Not content with mere close quarters, Goodridge took an unconventional approach. He squeezed with his toes. This unconventional move could be dubbed the sport's first and last testicular claw. The bout quickly descended into a series of groin attacks, culminating in Goodridge's victory by submission, thanks to his repeated onslaught on the sensitive region. As you can see, the term "no holds barred" had its reasons in this peculiar chapter of UFC history. Wes Sims stomping on Frank Mir's face. Meet Wes Sims, a fighter with a 6-1 record but a somewhat shaky grasp of the Octagon's do's and don'ts, during his UFC 43 debut against Frank Mir in Las Vegas. Hailing from Mark Coleman's Hammer House team, Sims bursts out of his corner, breezing past Mir's glove-touch gesture, only to find himself taken down by the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace. After wriggling free from Mir's armbar attempts, Sims, hands on the fence for extra support, unleashed a series of face stomps on the downed Mir. Cue the confusion in the arena. Sims celebrated as if he just won, only to be declared the loser due to disqualification. A classic case of not quite grasping the rules. In his defense, such stomps were fair game in international organizations like Pride FC at the time, just not in the good old USA or the UFC. Someone forgot to give Sims the memo. A rematch at UFC 46 7 months later saw Mir effortlessly dispatch Sims, sealing their divergent career paths. Mir used the victory as a launchpad to a heavyweight title, breaking Tim Silva's arm at UFC 48 to claim the championship. Meanwhile, Sims, living up to his nickname, struggled in the Octagon, going 0-3 and then bouncing around smaller organizations. A brief appearance on The Ultimate Fighter in 2009 didn't pan out, and a 2010 Strikeforce match against Bobby Lashley ended in a first-round TKO loss. And do you guys agree with our selection? Share your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subs and keep the excitement going in the Octagon.